Welcome to Control Concepts Insider, where we take a look behind the scenes at Control Concepts, a leading independent AV programming firm established in 1997. I'm your host and tour guide, Steve Greenblatt, and I'm also Control Concepts president and founder. During each session, we will share what makes our company unique and contributes to our success. I'll have discussions with our team to share stories and insights from those responsible for doing the hard work to serve our clients and build our reputation as a recognizable industry name. So with that said, today I'm joined by two of our newer programmers. The first is Victoria Grupp. Welcome, Victoria.
Hi, it's nice to be here.
Thanks for joining. And second is Mike Spadafora. Hi, Mike. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Thank you both for participating and coming along for the ride with me. And I wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about your background, but more importantly, what differences you've seen in what you've done in the past as an AV programmer and how that translates to an independent programming company. So for contextual purposes, both of you worked for AV integrators and you're in-house programmers, but that clearly doesn't define the whole role that you had. I know that there were other aspects too that you were responsible for. So Victoria, I'll start with you if you want to talk a little bit about how have you seen your role change in working at an independent programming company?
It's I was not prepared to answer. I don't know why.
Power of editing. Don't worry about it.
Yes. It's definitely been more exciting for me getting more involved in programming, but the biggest difference for me is I was more equipment centric before, and now I'm more software centric, which is where I want to be. Versus a lot of my focus prior to being here was literally what equipment's going to be at the job, how are we going to connect it and control it, versus being the person that kind of provides the ways to control it. And so I would say from hardware to software is really the biggest change. Even though I was an in-house programmer, I was a lot more involved with the specific equipment.
So just to clarify or follow up on that, so it was more about what equipment you were going to use and then how you were going to program, or was it more about
as well as being hands-on with configuring it, making sure my network was set up, making sure all my IDs were appropriate, and then troubleshooting from there if things didn't connect, which was always troubleshoot number one, right? Get everything connected before we even worry about how the system's working.
So it sounds like a lot of more field commissioning is I think a lot of what you're describing.
Yeah.
Mike, I know that your background is similar, and you've and probably can relate to what Victoria is saying. You've also been with us a little bit longer, and what have you seen has been some of the main differences, or how your role has changed and evolved?
So I think the biggest difference is that when I was working for an integrator, we were focusing a lot more on, focusing on things from more of a project standpoint than more of a development standpoint. So, and a lot of those projects kind of entailed one specific manufacturer. I don't know if I should say it, but it was mostly Crestron. And I didn't really have a lot of exposure to a lot of other platforms and technologies and stuff like that. So the biggest difference working at Control Concepts is it's our job to learn everything. We are platform agnostic, and we basically just learn what is required to be learned, depending on what comes through the door. So it's definitely, it's compared to like working for an integrator, it's definitely more of a learning environment just because you're exposed to so much more.
And I think that that's a really good point too. And I want to elaborate on that a little bit, because I think that is both a blessing and a curse, right? You have a lot more challenges of having to know all the different equipment, but you also have the breadth of knowledge and experience and don't get pigeonholed into kind of doing the same thing over and over again.
Right. It kind of seems to, nudge you to step out of your comfort zone, which I personally really enjoy because, one of the great things about technology is that it's constantly evolving and changing, and, it doesn't have to be repetitive. So that's one of the great things about, working more, with a, I guess I would say a platform agnostic company, is that you never really, get pigeonholed into doing, restaurant programming or DSP programming specifically. You really get to, branch out and, get your feet wet in a bunch of different technologies, different platforms. And, for me, that's the best way to learn, is to just, really dive into different things.
I think that that's a really interesting point too. I'm going to jump over to let Victoria chime in on this, because one of the things that I want to point out is a lot of the similarities that you guys have experienced, but also a lot of the similarities in what you're looking to pursue in the future. So, Victoria, I know that you've expressed, and we've had you do some writing for us and talked about how your learning focus has changed now that you're with Control Concepts versus what you were doing in the past. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So I don't know if this is a pattern for all integrators, but certainly in a company, if you find something that works, you're going to keep doing it and you're going to repeat that. And so sticking with a manufacturer such as Crestron or AMX, I feel like I was getting into a little bit of a rut where you are doing a lot of the same things over and over again. So like Mike was saying, the programming isn't as, you don't have to adapt as much or learn as much or approach things differently. You get into this pattern. There was a part 2 to that, and I completely, maybe late in the day is not so great for me. What was the rest of the question?
Well, how does it impact how you are looking to learn, what your goals are, and the way that you focus your efforts in learning new things?
Yes. So I'm not completely sure how to answer the question. I agree with everything that Mike said, but I know that here my learning is definitely towards learning different programmings versus at an integrator being an in-house programmer. While at times I would be required to learn new programming, your learning was more focused towards equipment and designs and implementation versus the programming. And for me, that's been a very big difference.
I'd also like to add too, when you're working for a company, your goals have to be synonymous with the goals of the company. So if the goal of the company is to, they have an equation for success, and for an integrator, it's how can we, put together a room, as quickly as possible, as efficiently as possible, and how can we make it repeatable for our clients. And a lot of the times that doesn't really require a lot of new learning. It just requires you to be good at repeating processes and getting things out the door. But
and preferably it's proven tested code, right?
Right, exactly.
The same code.
So when you go to more of like a I'll keep saying it, a platform agnostic company where we're not really of course we try to get things out the door quickly and efficiently, but we're not trying to constantly repeat what we're doing. We're following the trends of the industry, and wherever those trends of the industry goes, we have to adapt. And that's the goal of the company, is to adapt to how the industry is changing and stay ahead of the game. And when you're an employee, like I said, your goals are synonymous with the goals of the company. So here I feel like my goal is to learn as much as possible, follow the trends, and that just intrinsically leads to me learning more things because I have to, and I like to.
So let's play on that a little bit, because that's interesting, right? A lot of people would be very comfortable just being focused on one thing, being really good at it, being able to have proven outcomes and known known paths to how you're going to get there, versus you guys really took this plunge and jumped in the deep end and said, hey, you know what, I'm willing to learn anything, and I know that I could get thrown into many different situations. What's the difference there? Can you elaborate? Go ahead, Victoria.
I have a thought, and it's kind of along the lines. Even though we deal with different projects here, and they're vastly different in a lot of ways, I feel like there's been a lot less ambiguity here with projects. Whether even if it is an integration like job, or it's a module or a driver, I feel like it's better defined, and the scope is there, just because it has to be, right? Because everything is software, it's code, and at a certain point, you can't just patch everything together and say, oh, here's your product. Versus I feel like even in the more comfortable situation, if you will, there's a lot of ambiguity in jobs where the customer will say, hey, can you add this and this? Because, oh, I see I have a camera and a TV. Obviously, you can send the camera to the TV, even though my PC is running on an HDMI extension to the TV and my camera's into the connector, whatever, you know what I mean? So I feel like that's been a really big difference here. Even though we did kind of jump off the deep end, it's not really been as deep of an end as it could have been. It feels more secure to me. And that's just my personality and what I need.
Yeah. I think a big part of that too is, when you're, working for an integrator, you're, as a company, you're concerned, about more things than just the programming. You're talking about, working at a Walmart that, offers a vast variety of different products. Like, how are they going to be the best at anything compared to a little boutique that, specializes in one thing? And I look at, integration versus, programming house or development house in a very similar way, where, an integrator, the programming is sometimes, or a lot of times, an afterthought. They're trying to get the job sold, they're trying to get it built, and then, programming and commissioning is the last thing. For us, at Control Concepts, we focus on the programming, we focus on the development, and that's for a project, that's what we really have to focus on. So it, like Victoria said, like it does feel more secure, even though we quote unquote jumped off the deep end and, we're diving into a lot more new things. Just the simplicity of, and I don't want to say simplicity with the negative connotation. I think it's a good thing. The simplicity of our company model just allows us to operate more efficiently.
So just to clarify there, what I'm hearing is that it's important to have a good structure, approaching projects with more thoroughness, being able to take those steps to get the parameters and the scope defined in advance, and making sure that we do a lot of our due diligence ahead of doing programming versus kind of programming on the fly, which I know is never something that we've done, but is commonly thought of in the industry. I can recall over the many years that there were a lot of times in the earlier days where somebody would call us and just ask us to just show up at a job site and just start writing code. And I'm not going to knock that, because it could work. And I know that some people have to do it. It's just not the way we do things. And it was a little bit of a reality check for certain people. And we had to kind of figure out, negotiate that we need information up front, and we need to know what it is that we're doing, so that we know what the beginning and the end and the amount of effort that goes into it looks like.
Yeah. I mean, Mike can tell you, I was so excited the first time he sent me the control spec, and I was like, this happens here? This is awesome. What is this? Why haven't I seen this before?
Thank you for pointing that out. And anybody who wants to check that out, look for our control functionality specification on the resources section of our website. But that's like a real staple and quite honestly, anytime that we've varied from doing that, we've gotten ourselves in hot water. So I'm glad to hear that that's appreciated, and I realize that other people also value it because I've seen others use it and claim it to be their own. So I guess it's that
Flattery in the highest form.
Exactly. Exactly. I was looking for the right words there, but thank you. Thank you. Um, I'll kind of, wrap up this session, and there's certainly going to be more to talk about, but what I want to just tease in moving forward is a little bit of what you're finding to be a challenge in working in this type of an environment, and also what are some of your successes. So Mike, if you want to start, and then you could also maybe as somebody who's been with us for longer than Victoria, give her some things to look forward to.
Yeah, so some of the challenges, I mean, it definitely seems like when you first get started, there is an overflow of information because you're diving into something new, something that you really haven't been exposed to before, and it can get a little overwhelming at times. But I also find a lot of comfort in knowing that the people that I work with, a lot of the times they've been there, they've done that, or even if they don't have the particular knowledge that I would need to get from them, they have been in similar situations where it's like, hey, we don't know anything about this, we need to figure it out, and we need to be able to really parse through the information that's available to us, and really target it down to our specific needs. So it's with it seems like with every difficult thing, there's also a thing that makes it less difficult down the road, which is great. I mean, and that all depends on the team you're working with, and we just happen to be working with very good and talented people who just have the experience to back up their knowledge, and that's a huge asset when you're really getting started in something new, is to just be able to lean on people when you need to. And one of the other tough parts that kind of plays off of that is feeling like you're able to lean on people. I'm always somebody who I'll try to figure it out as much as I can by myself, and even if I am spinning my wheels, I can't figure it out, I would keep going and keep going and keep going, and eventually just be unproductive. But I'm one of the things that I've been learning over the past I guess it's almost a year and a half at this point, is actually just a year and a half, is that your team's there for you, and you can you're not stupid for asking questions, and wanting to know more is just indicative of your passion for the field and what you're doing. So it's something to get used to, but it in the long run, it really helps out to have people to be able to rely on.
That sounds very encouraging, so I appreciate that. Victoria, do you have other thoughts to add to that?
Yeah. They may have refined the process a little bit from you, Mike, because I didn't feel such an overflow of information, but I do. In my first few weeks, the information definitely trickled in. I think that was intentional. But I agree with everything, and the backbone of support here is really, I think, the biggest reason there's success here. I have, and it only took me a couple of weeks to feel okay pinging people who are basically complete strangers to me still, saying, hey, I don't know this, can you help me? And one, it's a big thing to be able to say, I don't know something, right? Like, that's not human nature to say,
oh yeah,
help. But then I always got a positive response back, and a helpful response, and sometimes overly helpful, to the point where I was trying to work through an exercise and someone would be like, oh, I can give you the answer if you want. I'm like, no, but that's going to defeat the point here. Some things I need to work through on my own, or it won't stick, But yeah, the the team here is incredible. The support's incredible. The resources that were provided, and I consider a lot of the team as resources, but even beyond that, the wiki page and development, the backbone of Tetra, just for company policies and things, and simply writing out some of the standards and how things work helped a whole bunch coming in. And so that, I think, is a massive success for the company and has helped me to be successful in my first couple months here.
I appreciate that. That's very encouraging as well. And I value that type of feedback, and that's really good to know. And I hope that we can continue to provide that support and as we grow. And one of the things that we encourage everybody to do is to pass along their knowledge, and we're very collaborative that way, and not possessive of the things that we know. So that's always something that I hold as a high regard, and I'm glad that our team is exhibiting that. One of the things that we're going to be talking about in our next session that I'll speak with you guys on is how can other AV programmers make a leap into doing more with what they know. And one of the things that we do, and we consider ourselves are more AV software developers, and we're going to talk a little bit about what that means. So I hope everyone can tune in to our next session, and we'll hear some more from Mike and Victoria. But until then, thank you for joining us and spending time to learn about control concepts. By taking a look behind the scenes, we hope that you will get to know us better and become more familiar with our team, and find that you connect with our core values and mission. Please reach out to any of us directly, and you could find our contact information on the Contact Us part of our website, controlconcepts.net, and you could also check us out on social media. But until then, that's all we have for today for the Control Concepts Insider.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.